So as explained, now it's time to work on the logic I want to execute if we do get back the weather data. Now I will get back some data here and I will parse it into JSON because I will get back a string, and I know that this service here will send me back JSON data which looks like this. And I know this because the documentation tells me that I will get back data in this format. However, as I said, as a string. Now I won't work with a string, I want to work with a JavaScript object. Therefore I'm parsing this string with JSON parse into a JavaScript object. So I will parse my response text, the string, into a JavaScript object here. Now with that I could access all the data and so on, but hey, why have we learned object-oriented programming with JavaScript if not to use it now? So I will actually create a new file here and I'll name it weatherdata.js. I'll import this file between init and app. So source is weatherdata.js. And in this file, I'll set up a constructor function for my weather data. So I'll use strict mode here too. And then I'll create a new function named weather with a capital W, since this should be a constructor function and I want to indicate this by having a capital W at the beginning. This will take a city name and a description. And in here I'll set up some properties. So my city name will be the city name I pass into this constructor function, and the description should be the description. Now city name and description, well, city name is clear. Description, however, if we have a look at the data we get back from our weather service, will be this part here. Description, broken clouds, for example. So I want to retrieve this weather description here. I also want to retrieve the temperature later on. The temperature, of course, is also available here. We can find it in the main field here, and here we would have a temperature. Now in this service we can also control if we want to get our temperature or any formats in the American format or, well, in the metric format. So if we have, for example, temperature in Fahrenheit or in Celsius, and the default is Kelvin indeed, and we can change this. Now I will later on change it to get it back in metric format, but I'm only doing this so that I can then convert it to Fahrenheit in my app. Now of course that doesn't make the most sense, but consider a service where you don't have the choice and you would have to do it on your own, and I want to show this. Now in order to do this, I'll add a third field here, this underscore description, and I'm just using the underscore here to indicate that this is kind of a private field. It's not set upon creating this weather object. It's not passed in a constructor here. It's not passed as an argument. We set it up and we set it to an empty string, but yeah, it is not initialized here. The reason for this is that I want to create a getter and a setter for this field to make sure that whenever I pass a value to this field, it is converted to Fahrenheit, since, as I said, I will retrieve the metric version in Celsius. For this to work, I'll use the object define property method here, and I'll access my weather prototype. I'll add it to my weather prototype. Temperature should be the name of the property I want to define. And of course, this should be underscore temperature here as well. So this is underscore temperature. This is just temperature. This will be the field we actually access. And then in the background, it will access and change this field. And as the third argument, I will configure this property here with a JavaScript object. How do I configure it? I provide a get function. And whenever I want to get this, I will simply return this temperature. But if I want to set it, that's the interesting part. This will also be a function. I will not just pass the value I get here, but instead I will set this temperature equal to be value times 1.8 plus 32. That happens to be the conversion formula from Celsius to Fahrenheit. and then set it to fixed to round it to 2 decimal places and prevent any possible floating point errors. And then I'll attach the f dot at the end to indicate the unit. So with this setter, I'm making sure that no matter what I pass here, it will be converted to Fahrenheit all the time. And as I explained, of course, with this service, you could fetch it in Fahrenheit in the first place, but I think you get my point. So that is the weather constructor I prepared. And with that, in the next step, I'll actually use it to create a new weather object and use all those fields to store the data I get back from my service.